let me just summarize and recollect all of these things for you over here. So correcting policies to correct a current account deficit. Remember, there are two broad approaches. One, you can go for expenditure dampening, where you just try to make the whole country slightly poorer so that they spend less and less on imports as well. So isme don't complicate it, just remind yourself that this is nothing more than implementing tight fiscal policy. And the way it operates, to show that, just sketch out an ADS diagram, shift your AD to the left, and this just shows us that the incomes in the country will fall, so they will start spending less on imports. Trade deficit will be corrected through this expenditure dampening policy. And then on the other hand, you have expenditure switching policies, where you don't try to slow down the domestic economy, where you don't try to make the spending of the country lesser. Instead, you try to switch or change the export and import prices. And the hope is that when export and import prices change, then foreigners and locals will switch towards your local product. And within those expenditure switching policies, we have this exchange rate depreciation, and then we have tariff. Now, exchange rate depreciation will reduce the price of both export and import. Import price बढ़ जाएगी, and tariff, it only attacks the import prices. It makes imports more expensive. बाकी जो details हैं, those are obviously important. Exchange rate में make sure that you understand and you can explain this J-curve effect. And उसके बाद याद रखो, effectiveness and desirability are what makes the analysis of this policy. Effectiveness meaning कि क्या exchange rate depreciation, does it work or not? Desirability means is it problematic, और उसमें the issue is it will create cost push inflation. So that are your policies to correct current account deficit. आखिरी जो एक चीज़ इसमें रह जाती है, that is a comparison कि अच्छा, if you have to choose, do I pick expenditure dampening or do I go for expenditure switching when I have to correct a country's current account deficit? Now that is a very, very easy question. You just need to understand how to answer this. So the question, let me repeat the question. Should the countries use expenditure dampening or expenditure switching policies in order to correct their trade deficits? Now, if this is the question, उसमें again तुमने याद रखना है, this would be a 12-mark question. So उसमें first 4 marks would be that, okay, what are expenditure dampening policies? उसमें quickly you will have to explain this part. So this would be, you can say, 1/3 of your answer. Okay, you can use expenditure dampening policies. This is what they are and this is how they work. Then the next 1/3 of your answer will be, okay, what are expenditure switching policies, and then a couple of examples of how these two expenditure switching policies work. So you will already get most of your marks just explaining कि ये दोनों dampening और switching, how do they work. And then towards the end you will come up to this comparison कि which one should a country use. Now to do that comparison, just remember this thing, expenditure dampening, it slows down your domestic economy. प्राइस लेवल्स भी कम हो जाते हैं, जीडीपी कम हो जाता है, एंड जो करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट ऑल्सो रिजॉल्व्स. सो एक्सपेंडिचर डैम्पनिंग में यू हैव टू सफ़र फ्रॉम अ स्लो डाउन ऑफ डोमेस्टिक इकोनॉमी, ऑल्दो तुम्हारे प्राइस लेवल्स भी कंट्रोल हो जाते हैं. सो इफ़ योर प्रॉब्लम इज़ इन्फ्लेशन एंड अ करंट अकाउंट डेफिसिट, then go for this expenditure dampening. Slow down your economy, get rid of inflation, and the expenditures will dampen, current account deficit bhi theek ho jayega. Whereas if your problem is not inflation and if you don't want to slow down your economy, then you should go for expenditure switching policies. They won't slow down your domestic economy. They won't slow down your domestic economy because if you think about it, basically what you are doing by switching expenditures is कि तुम तो पूरी demand अपने products की तरफ ला रहे हो. So if anything, your domestic economy will move even faster. सारी की सारी demand तुम्हारे local products की तरफ switch हो रही है. So expenditure switching policies, they don't squeeze your domestic economy and they correct your current account deficit. But a big issue with these expenditure switching policies is they lead to cost push inflation. So this question of कि switching करनी चाहिए या dampening करनी चाहिए to correct current account deficit boils down to this. If your problem is inflation and current account deficit, go for expenditure dampening. If inflation is not your problem and you can afford a little bit of inflation, then go for expenditure switching. तुम्हारी इकोनॉमी भी चलती रहेगी. Yes, थोड़ी बहुत इन्फ्लेशन होगी, but we are saying if to begin with inflation is not that big of an issue in your country, then don't slow down your economy. थोड़ी सी इन्फ्लेशन बर्दाश्त कर लो and go for expenditure switching. So that is all. I think I have covered all the things that are required. Now question time. If you want to leave, you can leave. That is it. मैंने इससे ज़्यादा नहीं तुम्हें आज बताना कुछ. And if you have any questions, any confusions, I am here. Take some time to clarify. कुछ भी पूछना है तो मेरे से पूछ लो. Anybody. Any questions? Chalo, then start leaving. I will be here for 4-5 minutes. If somebody asks a question, I will be happy to respond. Otherwise, you can leave.
Allah Hafiz, sir.
Allah Hafiz.
सर आपने जो बैलेंस ऑफ पेमेंट्स की बाकी जो वीडियोस अपलोड की हैं उनमें ये वाली चीज़ है अभी या नहीं?
ये वाली नहीं है अभी. करेक्शन नहीं है उनमें अभी. मैं अभी वैसे
आप वो ये वाली वीडियो अपलोड कर देंगे?
मैं ये वाली कर देता हूँ अपलोड. मैं ये वाली कर देता हूँ. इसी को फ़िलहाल यूज़ कर लो. बाकी जो IB वाली बुक है ना, उसमें देयर इज़ क्वाइट अ गुड एक्सप्लेनेशन ऑफ दीज थिंग्स. उसमें से देख लो. नहीं तो आई ट्राई टू ओपन दैट बुक. अब मैं तुम्हें बताता हूँ कौन सा पेज नंबर है. अच्छा जी, चलो. शर्जील, एनीथिंग एल्स?
नहीं सर ये वाली ना आप अपलोड कर दीजिएगा या बेशक आप ग्रुप में शेयर कर दीजिएगा.
मैं कर देता हूँ. चलो.